3, 2.
Good afternoon. I'm Jim Eskin. On behalf of Eskin Fundraising Trading, it's my pleasure to welcome you to number 17 in our nonprofit empowerment webinar series. This one is on a very, very timely subject, successful virtual events. I'm going to bring them in a little sooner than usual. I'd like to introduce our producer, John Largent, who's CEO of Game Day Media. This series would not be possible without him. John, can you take a moment to share some logistical information, particularly how people can type in questions and comments?
Thank you, Jim. Welcome to this week's Eskin Fundraising Training webinar. And I just want to remind you that if you have any questions, you can put them in the Q&A chat box down at the bottom, or you can put general questions or general comments in the chat room as well. Also want to remind you that the internet, as you know, can be spotty at times, especially during peak hours. So if we do have a little bit of a lag, we apologize, and we'll try to get that resolved as quickly as we can. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, John. I'm really excited about this show. I'm going to introduce her in a moment here. Anybody who knows that I like trivia. Have you ever heard the expression hostess with the mostess? Type in yes if you've heard it. And if you're so smart, type in who inspired Hostess with the Mostess. That's a tough trivia question. Well, this slide shows the late Pearl Mesta, and she was inspired an Irving Berlin play and then a movie starring the great Ethel Merman. And she was known to have the greatest parties in Washington, D.C. There were two reasons you didn't go. One, you weren't invited, or number two, you were dead. Now, Pearl passed away in 1975. So Dona Liston, who is the owner of Lambermont Events, is my hostess with the mostest. If there's anything about event planning she doesn't know, I want to know what it is. And first of all, Donna, this is the third time she's done a live workshop or a webinar with me. Donna, thank you for joining us again. And how is the Liston family doing?
You're welcome. Everybody's safe and sound, so and snuggled in down.
You know, they asked Pearl Mesta, who probably threw a gazillion parties. Now, Donna, I believe that you actually have coordinated 1,000 parties during your 30-odd year career.
Yes, I mean, there's no way I've lost track of all of them.
Well, you started when you were 15,
it's over 1,000.
Right?
Yeah,
wow,
exactly.
Wow. Well, Pearl Mesta probably had 1,000 parties, and she says the secret to my parties, I thought this was great advice, is in the hellos and the goodbyes. That applies if the party is in person or if it's virtual. It's in the hellos and goodbyes. And I remember Edith McAllister, who, if she wasn't the hostess with the mostest, she was the grandest of all the grand dames. And she would hold an annual Christmas party, Andrew, what was December 21st, I believe. And she passed away in June of 2018 at 100. So the last time she hosted a party, she was 100. She had this tradition. Everybody, there were hundreds of guests. She was on a bar stool and welcomed everyone as they walked in, and she was there. She had a little drink next to her, I think, to say goodbye to them. So the secret to Pearl Mesta and Edith McAllister's parties is in the hellos and the goodbyes. And that's important because nonprofits, there are about 1.5 million nonprofits in the country. There are 100,000 in the state of Texas. There are 6,000 just in the San Antonio area. And I'll tell you, it's not easy being a donor because all those nonprofits, you're not choosing between the good and the bad. You're choosing between the good and the good. But the truth is, and in our audience, I know we have a lot of nonprofit executive directors, we have board chairs, we have board members, we have directors of development. Your job is so important. And I think one of the questions we ask ourselves, can one person make a difference? And I want to tell you, and I know that Donna's worked with a lot of nonprofits, I don't care what your engagement. You can be the CEO, you can be the receptionist, you can be the board chair, the newest person on the board. You make a difference. And particularly right now, because everybody in the nonprofit world, you do what I love saying is in touch, improve, and save lives. And if we ever needed you, we needed you right now. And we're telling all our nonprofits, this is not the time to let your foot off the gas pedal, not to stop and watch what others are doing. The reality is, and Donna's going to get into this, we live in a world in which we don't know a lot more than we do know. But you as a nonprofit knows how the crisis is affecting you, how you can impact the crisis, and you should be making decisions because your work, I don't care what sector you're in, is more essential than ever. We have a little tradition. We started this after your first webinar, Donna. Could everyone type in nonprofit strong? Because that's who we are. We're nonprofit strong. And Donna, I'm going to ask you a question. What are we?
What are we?
Yes.
Non-profit strong.
You're right. You're right. In June of 2018, Andrew and I formed Eskin Fundraising Training. I had the privilege over my higher education advancement career to work with really amazing business community leaders. And I noticed they were fearless in everything that they did in their life, with one exception, asking for a gift for a favorite cause. And I think part of it is we didn't do a good enough job at explaining to them. And so Eskin Fundraising Training is all about demystifying the art and science of fundraising. We're excited. We're going to have webinars every Wednesday afternoon from 4 to 5 p.m. Central Time. And we like to think of everybody as part of our learning community. I need you in our database. If you receive this newsletter, that's a monthly, you just would have received one 2 days ago. You are invited to these webinars. If not, we're going to be sending out the slide decks, and you can just click on the PDF and you can add yourself, because that will get you invited to our weekly webinars and make you part of our learning community. I was proud last year to publish my first book, 10 Simple Fundraising Lessons. It's a quick read. I think Donna told me she read it on a plane ride. It's 80 pages. And we like to think of everybody in our live and cyber audiences as a learning community. I'd like to think that Donna and I know a lot, but we know our audience knows a lot. And between all of us, that we think we can answer any question. And what we're going to do is break apart the art and science of fundraising. We like to say there are 4 distinct phases. Number 1, who are you going to ask for money? Discovering their interest. You could be doing that right now. Cultivating them is preparing them for a solicitation. Remember, they're not choosing between the good and the bad. They're choosing between the good and the good. So we need you to forge a personal and an emotional bond. Solicitation is the obvious part, and that is how, when, where, and how much. And then finally, you say thank you to your good donors like Donna, because you're going to go back next year and ask Donna to consider giving again and consider increasing the size of that gift. And we like to point out, this is a mantra of the Institute for Philanthropic Excellence that was established by Marv Leroy. And he likes to say, and I couldn't agree more, you know, more money equals more mission. The purpose, money is not the end, it's the means to the end. And by the way, philanthropy is not just money, but it's the giving of time and money to make the world better. Now I have the task of, a daunting task of introducing our subject matter expert. Dona Liston has been in the event business one way or another for about 30 years. She's hosted over 1,000 events. She's going to check that list. Maybe it's closer to 1,100. She's had a fascinating career. She actually started by organizing parties for kids. And then she opens a retail party store. And then if that wasn't enough, she became a wedding consultant and had the fun of dealing with brides and mother-in-laws. And then she did something profound in 2010. She bought this beautiful mansion that's near Fort Sam, Houston. It's called Lambermont. The two best parties ever had were at Lambermont, one in 2017, one in 2018. But I want to talk to you about the agility of Donna. The party in July 3rd in 2017, we went through an elaborate RSVP and we set the number for 50. We set up beautifully for 50. We had 50 for food for 50. And then we had a reception hour between 6 and 7. At 6:43, Donna taps me on the shoulder. Jim, I've counted 73 guests. I mean, in 17 minutes, she and her team rearranged the seating. We were going to make a buffet. We would not have had enough food, so she changed it to plated. We started at 7. Nobody would know the difference. So thank you for making the best party of my life. You rescued it like from the Titanic. Donna's also very active in the planning industry and holds leadership positions and has been talking to planners all around the country. And I've met her through her various positions in nonprofit leadership. So Donna, this is how the questions of the program is going to unfold. I have about 15 questions for you. And we're going to try to move that pretty quickly. Some might take a longer answer than another. And then we'll be looking where we are 35, 40 after, and we'll see if we have questions from the audience. But are you ready? Thank you again, Donna, for being a third-time guest.
Oh, you're welcome.
And are you ready for questions?
You bet.
Let's go. Let's go. Hey, nonprofits are following the CDC and other governmental authorities in postponing or canceling events for this year, okay? And again, we're still saying we're in a world in which we don't know far exceeds what we do have. What would your advice be to that nonprofit that traditionally holds a special event fundraiser in the early part of the new year, like January or February?
So first off, I'd start with, what are your goals for this fundraiser? Okay. And fundraisers should have at least 2 goals. One of them is your financial goal. And the second one really is about your mission, your story. And so however that goal needs to be, but you need to look at why you're even having this fundraiser. Because it's certainly not because everybody wants to come eat your rubber chicken. We know that. So there's a purpose behind it all. So look at your goals and then brainstorm of how you can still accomplish your goals. And it may be completely off of what you originally had planned in this time. But you also then inventory your assets. And when I say that, I mean, go in and do a SWOT analysis, your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And look at those of what is your best strengths. And so how can we, as the word's been probably overused, pivot to do this, to change it up enough that we can still meet our goals. And that's the whole part of that in it. So go in and look at those assets. So it could be who your board members are, that you have a huge database, that you have this huge following on Instagram, whatever that is. Go in and figure that out and then brainstorm with whether it's your board, your best friend, yourself in the mirror, whatever it is. I mean, I didn't say that brainstorming gets things going and rolling. So that's how I'd suggest starting.
Okay, that's good, Donna. Hey, no easy questions, okay? So, do you see any circumstances in the foreseeable future in which a nonprofit can bring people, say a group of 50 or less together for a special event? And how would such an event be conducted?
So my answer is yes. Of course, safety first. That's the number one thing. And that you must follow all guidelines, all of that. But there are ways to be able to do that. And so one may be you're moving your indoor event to an outdoor event. And so you're going to be able to spread out maybe further. And it may also be then, it turns into an open house. So
Ah,
not all 50 people or all 100 people show up at the same time. That it's something, and we're going to be actually selling that for Christmas for corporate, because that dinner and dance is gone. We're not going to have a dinner and dance for a while. And so instead, we're going to decorate the home, and every department's going to get their time slot and get to come through here. So the CEO is still here. The house is still in entertainment. There's still an entertainer playing. And the food, even working with caterers, where the food comes out in smaller increments, so throughout that time. So whether it's split out.
It'll still be rubber chicken, won't it?
Maybe not. Maybe you don't have to do it that way. But I mean,
chicken nuggets.
yeah, there's even a company that called Magic Mirror that is to do selfies with, and you look at yourself in this mirror and it takes your picture. Well, they have just come up with a virtual where Santa Claus pops into the picture and is with you. So it's just, again, there's lots of companies out there to help. I definitely say start talking to your venues already and seeing what they're doing, because they already have some ideas.
Great idea. Okay, hey, let's turn to successful virtual events. And I want to get your brief comments on some major categories. Number one, the biggie, galas. Number two, award luncheons. Number three, auctions. Number four, golf tournaments and runs. So maybe some thoughts on galas, award luncheons, auctions, and then golf tournaments and runs.
Okay. So now a gala, again, it's not going to be the same gala. There's that gala that we did last year, 2 years ago. You're not going to see that for a little while. So what is it going to look like? And so what I want you to do is break each of the elements of a gala, because a gala usually consists of a happy hour, a meal, a speech, an auction maybe, and all of these things. So break it up about those galas, and then look at your goals and say, can we meet these goals doing just certain parts of that? And remember that virtual doesn't mean a Zoom call. It doesn't have to be a Zoom call. It could be something way out the limits of that. So an example of your auction. So if you've broken down your gala and you have an auction, you can still do a live auction. You can do an online for weeks. And we've kind of the last 2 years, been doing that anyhow. So let's continue that and figuring out how we can get more people to that auction for you. But on an awards luncheon or dinner or whatever, this is going to take some people behind the scenes helping out. So you're going to go in and do this virtual where we've said who all the nominees are. So every nominee knows that they've been nominated. Then you get somebody from their family, somebody involved, to make sure they're watching, they're on this. So we have this fancy video of whatever it is. So that may be the Zoom part of it. And then the winner, all of a sudden, there's somebody knocking on the door. And so now you have your volunteers with a TV crew, a camera crew, whatever, with the actual award. So you're now presenting this actual award. It's being filmed, and it's big. So everybody still gets to watch that, of them actually receiving the award, but it's only that person and the presenter of the trophy. And just kind of think about the big check showing up at your door with the clearinghouse. And so with the balloons or whatever, however you want to do that, make it a fun that people are going to want to watch and are they getting ready to knock on my door now type thing. So you can do things with that live streaming real easy on that. I know somebody that just did it at a drive-in movie theater. And so everything was on the big screen and people were in their cars. And if only you got out of your car to go get it. So there are ways of doing this. And if you do it that way, then sell picnic lunches or picnic baskets, and everybody gets their little individual stuff delivered to their car. you know, there's the whole idea is how can we do this that's safe and still raise money?
Awesome. Great concept.
Yep.
Hey,
You know,
I'm a fundraiser, and I'm going to say the bottom line of special events is raising money for the nonprofit or cause. So can donors be asked to contribute without any type of event at all?
my answer is going to be absolutely. Have you heard about a non-gala gala?
Yeah.
So I put together this video, and if you'll play that video real quick here, and then I've put this together. It was right after, there we go. Uh-oh.
Guess what? Your time is now. We officially welcome you to the St. Paul's Montessori Non-Gala Gala.
And you don't need a babysitter?
Donate and help our students and our teachers, and you don't have to go anywhere. So you can watch your Netflix, wear your pajamas, eat whatever food you like, and support your school. Isn't that a win?
So that was a real short little video there.
Hey,
and
Donna,
used,
can I say, I need to
Yeah.
say two things. Number one, I'm enormously jealous that you yourself produced something that good. I thought, you reached out to some really. And number two, as a fundraiser, I love no events. You know why? Because what's the cost?
Right, that's exactly it. It's nothing. There is none of it. And the whole idea is kind of making fun of the events. That one, and it says there's no rubber chicken dinner. There's no going paying money for the dress. The two girls, and this was very. I intentionally had those two girls because those two girls babysit all the kids at St. Paul's, and so they knew them, and they know that it's difficult to get one. It's who grabs them first. So they intentionally were put on there saying that. So that's kind of the steps on that is make sure it's personal, that it hits something that that goes with your mission and fun. This is going out to parents. So that's who I was posting it to. So knowing your audience too. But for anybody that needs, it was a Google photo, Canva, and Vimeo are the three apps I use to put all that together. Costs nothing.
I think it's no fair. Here you're the greatest, you're the hostess with the mostess, and now you're a video producer. Hey, let's talk about something key in any organization is the use of volunteers, volunteer engagement. How can volunteers be engaged in running virtual events?
So any way you can get them to. It's kind of the answer on that is any way possible. If you're depending on just staff, you're spending too much money. And that too much money spending on staff is, I see you there, Jim. Spending too much money on staff is taking it all down.
I know that.
Oh, yeah, so you've got to have your volunteers chairing these committees, fulfilling these, the committee work, the actual sit down planning of this. Make sure for sure you're using them for your publicity. If they're not sending out their information and their invitations to all their friends, you really have missed the mark on that. But I would also say, make sure you hire your AV guy. That's real important to have somebody professional, whether it's a DJ, an AV person, somebody like John that's doing this, that logistics of it. And go with the ones that you've already talked to, that you've been working with for years, because I bet they can figure all this out.
Hey, Donna, that leads perfectly into the next question. What goes into the budgeting for virtual events?
So I would say it's almost the same amount, the same kind of budget. You still have to figure out what your expenses are, if there are any. And there should be. I mean, there should be some expenses in there. So figure out what those expenses are, what your goal are, and kind of to watch those steps. So you may not be charging as much. It may be a $5 ticket or a free event, but you have your donate now button or something to that sort. So you just got to kind of be careful with that.
You always lead perfectly into the next question, and that is, should nonprofits consider charging less for virtual than in-person events?
So that's going to be those yes and no's. Depends on what you're doing. It just depends on how you're doing it. Now, example we did about a run. So you can still have a run and charge the exact same amount of money to get your swag bag and your bib, but everybody's on their own timeline on their run. So it could still be a 35, 45, 50, whatever it is that you've been charging to participate in a run-a-thon or a walk-a-thon, but because they're going to go drive by and pick up their goodie bag, or you're going to mail it to them. And so that one, I would say, absolutely do not charge less on. It's the whole purpose of it. Now, if it's just a Zoom call, yeah, you're not going to be able to charge because you're not going to have the food cost on that either. So you really have to kind of think of every element of what you're doing. And, you know, we've got to get the money. We definitely have to get the money there. That's why we're here. So.
What advice would you have for nonprofits to identify affordable advice and counsel and professional support?
I would say talk to your AV people, talk to your venues, because you know, like myself, we have been thinking about this for 3 months now of how we can have successful events, and then organizations, so event planners, organizations like ILEA, the International Live Event Association, and NACE, which is the National Association of Catering Executives. All of those have been working on this from back in March, from day one. And so use all of that up. I mean, today, Eventbrite posted how to have an Eventbrite event virtually and what you should be charging and how to go that route. So, you know, there's lots and lots out there.
Hey, what are some benchmarks for determining how successful your virtual event is?
So I would say the same as the rest of them. Did you meet your goals? Did you meet your financial goals? Did you meet your touch? And that's why I think live events are so good, is because you get to personally touch. But did you do that virtually? Did you add more names to the pile? So now that we're working on those, that's, you know, so did you meet your goals or exceed your goals? That's right there. That's how you know if it's successful or not.
Okay, Donna, no easy questions, okay? Should a national organization consider moving an in-person event to a part of the country that is considered much safer than the rest of the country?
My answer on that is going to be no, for a couple of reasons. You can't depend on that area being safe when you've got to have a planning time, so you can't depend on that area being safe at the time of yours. This is being spread throughout. So, and then the other one is, if it really is that safe, they don't want us there. So they probably won't be booking. You know, that's
a great observation.
Yeah, there's a reason they're being safe. What I will say is convention centers now there is now a certification for convention centers on, are they COVID ready? Are they doing the cleaning? So you know, if you're going to a big conference or big convention, that may be even one that you need to start looking at. Is that convention center certified to be doing anything? But I would say break it up into smaller. So if you have a national company, maybe break it up into little increments there, and every town has their small, whatever you were going to do at the top nationally, but the national message is still given, is the exact same message to everybody.
Hey, Donna, how much different is the planning process for virtual events than it is for in-person events?
You know, it's really not that much difference in the planning part of it. What is different is that brainstorming, because it's not just, oh yeah, we're gonna go do that, but that brainstorming, figuring out how to do it, and then convincing the board that it's not just a Zoom call. Because I think that's what I keep hearing is, we don't want to do it virtual because it's just so boring. We're just going to postpone, blah, blah, blah. But they're not thinking the other ways. And so that's your challenge with that, is coming up with being able to tell you, prove to your board. But all events need what I call a CPG. It's a committee, a CPG. It's a committee planning guide. So whether it's virtual, live, whatever, you need this CPG. You can go in, the JCs are the ones that actually started that. But it's a great, great planning guide. And doing your SWOTs, that's strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. Every event, you need to look at that. And so whether it's, again, virtual or live, and your Jim's your 4 parts of the gift cycle, if they've got to be continuing that, that's still the same,
Right.
Whether it's a live or virtual, they've got to continue that.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, I still have a few more questions for Donna. See, you're doing wonderful on time as usual. But John, just so I know, do we have some questions in the queue? We're not there yet, but we're getting close.
Not yet.
Well, hey, Joel in Dallas, come up with a question.
There are a couple of questions, actually.
Okay, but we're not there yet, so get ready.
Okay.
I'm going to have a couple more for Donna. Donna, do you think when we finally, knock on wood, get to the other side of this crisis, that the event environment's going to change so much and we'll see virtual events become a lot more commonplace?
I think what's going to happen is you're going to have the elements that really worked in the live events and the elements that really worked in the virtual events come together. And it's going to be a mesh of the two.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, but the whole idea is humans want human interaction.
Yeah.
And I don't see that going away.
Okay, before we start going to questions from the audience, you know, I asked you this question on our very first webinar, but I think it bears repeating. You started your career by entertaining children at parties. You have over 1,000 parties under your belt. It's all about people enjoying themselves, having a good time. I think we could use some advice on how to get our spirits up on it is a very difficult time.
It is. So, you know, I always say you need to go to your happy place. And if you can't physically go to your happy place, go there mentally. You know, my happy place is the beach. And if I can't get to the beach, I'm at least going to get a little sun in my, and close my eyes and imagine hearing the beach. That's just kind of my happy place. Being a creative person, I also do a lot of arts and crafts or things that I can do to use that creative brain. But another saying that I have said for a long time is remember to breathe. Take that deep breath, relax, and know that it's okay to be just okay. You don't have to be fantastic every day. It's okay that we're just okay.
Yeah. Spoken by a good mother. And you know, thank you. We need that. I'm going to bring Donna into the summary part of this discussion, but John, do we have some questions? Donna did perfect. As usually, her pacing is just on target.
Well, Jim, we have a couple of comments that folks were relating to the conversation. One is, we're considering hosting a stewardship event virtually. Do you have any ideas about that?
I'm going to go first, Donna Heskin here. Now, stewardship, remember my 4 cycles? is so important. That's acknowledging and thanking the donor, because that's both the smart and right thing we're going to do. We're going to go back to those donors next year, and hopefully we've earned enough of their trust they'll support us again. But before, Donna, I let you in, I promise I'll shut up. I always felt, I've worked with board members and volunteers who were scared of asking for gifts. I always found a great way with simply having those board members, don't ask for gifts, just call donors and say, I serve on the board and I want to thank you for your support of our mission.
Absolutely. I mean, picking up the phone and doing that thank you. If you're wanting to do an event, I first ask is what kind of event are you wanting to do? But it's the whole idea is, are you saying thank you? And so it could be just going to Canva and creating this really cool thank you note that is animated and send that to them. Something that I'm working on is finding all the funny holidays. So ice cream day, I'm sending a picture of an ice cream cone and saying, enjoy the ice cream today, happy. And so find out all those silly little donut day and all of that. And so that can be all year round that you're doing that. That's, another fun way to do it. The whole idea is don't let them forget about you.
Yeah. One of the chapters of my 10 Simple Lessons is simply called 7X. Every donor should be thanked 7 times during the year, whether they give you $100 or $1 million. Thank them, and that can be as easy as sending them the traditional tax letter for their files. That can be a phone call. That can be putting their story on your website. That can be before taking them out to lunch. Now I guess you're going to take them out to a Zoom lunch. But you should thank your donors on 7 different occasions during the year. John, do we have some other?
Yeah, let me just go through some comments here, and then there's a question at the end, and these are from different people. Dwight wrote that they did a virtual live event on YouTube with no dinner and raised over $50,000 this past April. Single tickets were $100, tables were $1,000, and sponsors were $5, $10, and $25K. So that's pretty. That's a great success story.
I'm going to say I don't know who the director of fundraising there, but I think they deserve a raise. I like that.
Yeah. Congratulations on that one. But that's just it, though. So they still, you heard that they still had their sponsors, and so that's another one of those. How do you pull in your sponsors, and how can you still fulfill that contract that you have with those sponsors? And it may be a little bit different, but the need's still there for that. And so that's definitely something you need to be looking at. Yeah.
This is from Janae. We typically host a mass and meal. The thought is to host the mass virtually with the opportunity for folks to participate in the mass as lectors and offer prayer intentions. And Charlotte Ann said that in producing virtual events in the past several months, we found that a lot of pre-production pays off. So for virtual events, I would think that people should expect to pay the usual AV fees plus a bit.
Folks, I would tell you, there would be no webinar series. I don't know, if I hadn't hired John Largent and Game Day Media, there's no way. I consider myself and my wife Andrea and our 2 cats pretty smart. There's no way we could pull this off on our own.
Thanks,
That's
Jim.
money well spent.
Yeah, and Joel is asking, can you discuss how the mission changes in a virtual environment?
I would say it shouldn't, because the mission, so you're going to tell your story still, and you still want people to know what that story is. And so that may be, so that the mission statement's not going to change. The way you tell it may change. And so you may get, so it may be just a video that goes out with a donate button at the bottom talking about it. Or it could be a video about how their money was spent. And this is what we're doing. Here is a great video of that. So, that's a great way to do it too.
Donna, that's another reason I'm mad at you. That was such a perfect answer from a fundraising professional's perspective. Your mission, folks, your missions continue. You might have other challenges, but all those important needs you serve, you'll probably serve them even more. This does not impact your mission. You maybe are pivoting a little to help out with COVID-19, but your mission is the heart of your organization. And we're doing great on time. And so, Donna, did I give you a chance to respond on stewardship?
Yes. But what I do want to kind of talk about, just going back a little bit, is how important it is for your virtual events to be interactive.
Let's talk a little more about that. America is suffering, I hate to say it, but from Zoom or computer screen fatigue. We are suffering.
Right. So if you can do something that's not just that, an example is a trivia night. So there's actually, you're putting in the answers and you're doing things. Lots of DJs have started that. They already have the platform done, and all the money's going to nonprofits. So that's one great way to do it. Even like the women's club that has a hat luncheon every year during Fiesta, it had to get moved to November. Now it's completely gone, but they still depend on that money. So I was talking to her about doing a show and tell. So the ladies still doing interactive, making their hats. And now we've got them all on screen telling us about their hat and going through that direction. And then to make the money, maybe it's you vote on the best hat, and that voting costs money. So now everybody's going to share that with their friends so their friends can vote and donate.
This is really a time to run wild with creativity.
Absolutely. There's a lot of things that you can purchase a kit. So that's where you're making your money, is you're mailing them a kit of something, and then they get the kit, and now you have a tutorial of what to do with this kit. An example is like a gingerbread house. And so the gingerbread house has been mailed out. You go through a tutorial, you learn how to put it together, and then we have a contest. I mean, there's just so many ways of doing just that. And that's the idea, is thinking outside, and I don't want to say outside the box, but just thinking a little different.
Okay, and by the way, I'm going to bring Donna in and out. I'm going to try to summarize it. And by the way, if you have some questions, John will interrupt me. I'm used to being interrupted. But John, at the moment, before I move to my summary, are there any other comments or questions?
Not at this time, Jim.
So if I heard you, now this is testing my mental agility. For 2021, I think when we met back in April 1st, actually, probably, the do's and don'ts to reschedule, it was kind of a linear issue. It was taken out of your hands. Now, again, we live in this world in which what we don't know is a lot more than what we do know. So you're saying be thinking about 2021, take a look at various options, but you're going to have to be pretty fluid and organic. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I'd say make sure you have plan A, plan B, and plan C. I would say that you make sure that whatever you're doing is safe, because that's the worst thing you want, is somebody to get sick and come back on you. And make sure that you're looking at get that cash, get that money. That's the whole reason we're doing these fundraisers.
Fundraisers, love you, Donna. I love you. It's coming back to the bottom line. But I heard you right now, events of 50 or more or less can be possible. Probably at a minimum, it's outdoor, and you have the setting in which you really can distance people. You might even want to think of breaking your events into different pieces on different days for, say, 15 people one day, 15 the next. Events, in-person events, but the way to handle that now.
Yes.
And also, we're lucky in San Antonio. I mean, you don't have to worry about cold weather for a while, maybe a little rain, but generally we have some pretty good weather. And I was concerned, I was inviting Bostonians down to Lambermont in July, and, they think, 80 degrees is too hot. So we did our event on it, I believe we moved outside at 7:30, and no one complained about the heat at all. Galas, and you're saying galas, comment, galas can continue. Can you dress up at home if you want?
Sure. You could, yeah, absolutely. And you know, I know so many people are doing the top of the tuxedo and not doing the bottom of the tuxedos because they're sitting at a computer. Absolutely. And just like if the ladies' hat luncheon, they want, so they're going to dress up and they're going to have their hat on. Same thing.
Right, great. Award luncheons. You think that we have a lot of award luncheons, you know, handling that virtually?
Absolutely. This is what we're talking about. We could do that through the, you know, the video of all of it going on, getting the awards, but still add a little of that personal interaction.
Yeah.
Make sure that whoever's there gets that interaction.
If I think really this was getting ahead of the loop, we were seeing virtual auctions before you had to. Can you talk a little
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's several companies out there that just do that. So the whole idea is that you're able to sell items to people that are not necessarily in the room that night. It's also making it easier to use it on your phone, even if you are at the event, you're on your phone bidding instead of having to go move from your friends or go back over to that table. So you're going to see a lot of that, of virtual auctions.
Now, we were talking golf tournaments and runs, and I'm going to put a plug in. They actually stayed over Lambermont a couple of years ago. My brother and sister-in-law, they live for golf, and actually they got a home. They did well in Palm Springs, and they're doing their safe golf is they have their own cart, their own clubs, but they're going to eat up a lot of golf balls. They're not going to touch after each hole. They're going to leave the ball in there. And they're not going to touch the cup.
Yeah, that's the whole thing is that now we're just doing an individual team and they're only with their team. And that golf tournament could even go for several days.
Yeah. And how about runs? Are you hearing anything on runs?
Absolutely. The same thing is, you know, the Whitty Museum did one in May and their Dino run. And she did just that. And she raised, I think, $30,000 on that run. And didn't have everybody there at the same time. It all was about go out on your run and shoot a picture to us, show us what you're doing. But they still purchased that number bib because that's a big deal for them.
Yeah. And you know, all I know when I'm out in the streets, can you have some runs with dogs? I swear I see more dogs being walked than people walking them.
You know, here in San Antonio, they say with every apartment lease, you get a leash because there's so many dogs that come in. So absolutely, you know, again, safety even for the dogs. You've got to make sure all of that. But, you know, there's new dog parks going in. So there's certainly ways of doing that.
Donna, if I heard you, for everybody planning a virtual event, beware that America is suffering from computer screen fatigue. And this is where, Donna, you said, think of ways to be interactive and enjoyable.
Yeah, so if you're not entertaining or educating, you're doing something wrong. So just think about those two elements if you're asking somebody to do something. You either have to entertain them or educate them. Everybody's on today because they wanted some education. So make sure you're not just a lecturer with doing that. Yep.
Well, as the fundraiser, I love the No Event and inspired by your wonderful video. Could we talk a little about, and there's been, you know, No Events started a couple of years ago.
Yeah, the first one I did was probably 20 years ago.
Wow.
And it was a letter writing campaign. And it was coming from the chairperson that was just of the committee. And he's like, I'm just so tired of these having to go spend money on a tuxedo. And do you know how much money my wife had to spend on that dress? And we came up with a letter that went out to every donor. And those donors at that time wrote the checks. Now, yes, doing this, the whole purpose of this is not to have a fabulous party and eat a fabulous rubber chicken dinner. It's about having that, the fundraising.
And you know,
Make
you
it fun.
talk about 20 years ago, we sent out letters, but you showed, you yourself produced what I thought was a Hollywood caliber video. So
Yeah.
that can be the trigger for the whole event.
Absolutely. Nowadays, there's so much more you can do making your own video. So whether it is a video of talking about the non-event event, or talking about your mission statement, or a tutorial about what you're doing and or how to do something. But absolutely, video is so easy these days with all the cell phones and all the apps.
You don't have a PhD in video production, right?
No, I do not.
Okay, so
And everything was done off a cell phone and an iPad.
Wow, you hear that? Really, and that's a great way to engage volunteer committees and not to overburden the staff. But there is tremendous. Again, and Donna was saying, you know, the missions is different. Really, you should think creatively in how your approach fits your mission.
Absolutely, absolutely. I did see a question just come up on about the video, and so I'll just kind of answer that one real quick and the apps we used. So it was Google for my photos. I put the Google first, then I went to Canva and created the slides, and then Vimeo, V-I-M-E-O, is the app that produced the actual video. So you have to go into then your pictures and pull those down. And then that music and everything is right there. So that's an easy one to do.
I got to tell you, Donna emailed that video to me about 2 weeks ago, and I watched it and I shot right back, who produced this for you? And then she said, I produced it. And again, another reason I'm so jealous. And again, but when you're thinking about your event and you're thinking about your mission, remember, the donor is not choosing between the good and the bad, but between the good and the good. And what makes your nonprofit stand out? And try and maybe fit your virtual event to how you have a unique and distinctive mission. And Donna's saying there are plenty of opportunities to use volunteers.
Absolutely.
They could be your video producers. There's interactive. We're seeing a lot of live streaming, which might work well for award events. You probably would think of, you probably want to short down the length of your programs, that,
yes,
you know, the streamed or Zoomed presentation should be much shorter than what it would be in person. And your donors might even appreciate that, right?
Yeah.
And we heard, and I'll back this up, you know, there are places to skimp. Do not skimp on tech expertise. The smartest thing I did in this webinar series is got someone who's not scared by the technology and will pick me up. And that's what John Larchin does at Game Day Media. You probably will need help because you do not want to embarrass your organization.
I agree.
And again, you're saying start where your goals aren't going to change. You know, what is it you want to do? Obviously, you want to raise money. You want to tell your mission. You want to get their interest. And actually, we hit the fundraising. The call to action is, you know, you want to challenge your donor to give money, to give time, to give best ideas, et cetera, et cetera. Planning is the same. And I got to tell you, Don, I'm sorry, as a fundraiser, I'm kind of a snob. And professional fundraisers were concerned about how much money was poured in to earn, you know, a special event dollar. And you hit the nail right on the head. You said, particularly when you're already overburdening staff. Now, it's different if you have a volunteer committee that will allow the staff to go out and continue to fundraise and implement the mission of the nonprofit. But you really have an opportunity here. The reality is that your cost of virtual events will be much, much less than the cost of an in-person event. Would you not agree?
Yes, I do. And yeah, use those volunteers. Those numbers shouldn't be like
Yeah.
that.
And
Yeah.
in the end, by the way, and in the end, Donna kept on picking on the rubber chicken. But by the way, I had some wonderful rubber chicken at Lambermont. They're exceptional. But, you know, people, you get down to the bottom line, people don't go to your events for the event, you know, for the gala, for the luncheon, for the auction. They're going because they are, in their hearts and their heads, they're connecting with the mission of your nonprofits. So your virtual event is going to connect with their passion for what you all are about the same way as a live event. And remember, that's the most important thing. And by the way, too, Donna is very, very, very good at planning. But the other is you don't have to start perfectly, just start. And I'm thinking already, you know, before we know it, it's going to be 2021, and you should be investigating. How can you do it in person? How can you do it virtually? How can you do it creatively? To start, you know, we have a lot of events typically are in January and February, and you should begin your planning process right now. And it's always, you know, the bottom line, the donors and the attendees for your virtual or in-person events, they're more than donors, they're friends. And so you should all the time nurture your friendships. We're wrapping up here. John, before I get to the final slides, do we have any other questions or comments?
We do. We do.
Okay.
We've got a few questions. So,
Okay, right at the buzzer. Okay.
yeah. So one is from Joel. How do you encourage participation in a virtual event? I'll go ahead and read these off so that you can answer them. I'll just get them all. So Joel, how do you encourage participation in a virtual event? And Charlotte Ann, what are creative ways to give sponsors the love in virtual events? And any guidelines to follow in shortening presentation times for virtual events?
Okay, Donna, I'll let you go. Okay, John, do we just lose Donna? There she is. Okay.
No, yeah, sorry.
Okay, well, I give you the tough questions, by the way, and I thought those were some tough ones.
And my internet did go off real quick here. But so part of it is you're asking how to get them invited, how to get them to participate. And that's where some of your volunteers are going to matter, is them spreading the word. But remember what I talked about with the entertain or educate. So you've got to make something that's personal about it. They need a reason to attend. And so is that because they, you know, even the happy hours that we started having virtually, people are already tired of those even. So you need to really make sure that you're giving them a reason to get on.
John, and we have time for maybe one more question or comment. Do we have something there?
Yes. What are creative ways to give sponsors the love in virtual events?
Oh, that's right. That's for Charlotte Ann, I believe. And Donna, that's a tough one, so I'm going to give it to you.
It is, but if you're asking people to go out and do pictures of something, maybe it's like a scavenger hunt, and where you've got to find that logo someplace that you're moving to and taking pictures and posting. You know, the old step and repeats as you walked into a venue can still be done virtually now. So or purchased with their logos on it. So there's ways of still getting that out there. But the whole idea is, are you talking to your sponsors of what their needs are? You know, what are they needing? Is it just a touch, or because they really don't care about get those 10 tickets at the table to have that dinner? I mean, just keep facing that one. So they're doing it because it's their marketing money.
Right. And I want to just point out here, we're wrapping up, we're right on schedule. Philanthropy is responding to COVID actually stronger than it did during the recession of 08 and 09. People are giving. And so you need to reach out to them, communicate with them. And I keep on repeating this, you know, people talk about corporations, but the lion's share of philanthropy comes from individuals. And board, Donna, would you say this is the time for our boards to really step up and provide leadership, to pull their oars? And remember, philanthropy is not a zero-sum game. You're giving the donor a way to may feel good. And for those of us who have been involved in fundraising during our careers, I really mean this. I believe the donor gets more out of the process than the benefactor. They get to be real special. And I'm finally saying, you know, I like to say, treat your donors like family. Today, I have a sister in Boston. I have a brother in Palm Springs. You know, we check in every day. How are you doing? How am I doing? You know, treat your donors, check in with them, you know, and ask, how are you doing? Tell them what's happening in the nonprofit. Ask them maybe there's a way that you can help them. And a word of sun, that nothing lasts forever. We are going to get to the positive end of this. And if you have a way to brighten their day, if I receive that video that Donna produced, let me tell you, I would have laughed. And that's your job, inspire our donors. And I'm going to continue, whether it's a virtual or an in-person environment, I give you a money-back guarantee. The more you ask, the more you're going to raise. And finally, I just can't get away from this quote. This is what President Kennedy said at the American University commencement on June 10th, 1963. And I get goosebumps because I think he's talking to us right now. Our most basic common link is that we inhabit this small planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's future, and we're all mortal. Don, I get goosebumps. I feel like that moment was made for us right now. I want to thank all our nonprofits for comprising our learning community. And I want to thank the hostess with the mostess that I know. And somebody, if there's something about planning that she doesn't know or event planning, I'd like to know what it is. Donna, thank you for always being such a terrific partner in our process. And
you are welcome.
Oh, here's what we're going to do. We're going to post a very brief written summary on LinkedIn. Recording of the slides and everything, and we plan to send that to everybody who registered, and we're also going to post that on LinkedIn and Facebook. Donna Liston, thank you again very much, and to our nonprofit learning community, please stay safe, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, John.